Hi, this is Megan Burnett. I'm the CFO of Schroders. We employ 6,000 people, and this is my duvet flip.
How do you build being curious? What is it really?
Curiosity, curiosity. Curiosity kills the cat, but it does not kill your career.
I say, have you got feedback fear?
Actually, feedback should be in the moment, because then it's really valuable and you can learn. I'd say don't spoil a great career with a plan.
You a cool person?
Super cool.
You're full of joy, but also I'll take you in to negotiate anything.
Yeah.
Are you ready for my final question?
I think so.
What's your duvet flip? What gets you out of bed in the morning to flip the duvet?
Well... Hi, this is Megan Burnett. I'm the CFO of Schroders. We employ 6,000 people, and this is my duvet flip.
I love interviewing CFOs from big PLCs. They have so much wisdom across the whole business. Let's find out what flips Megan's duvet in the morning.
Hey Jack, good to go?
Welcome to my duvet flip. How are we?
Fantastic, thanks Jack. Fantastic to be here. I really appreciated it.
I've been really excited about this one. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun.
I think so too.
I want to start like first job. I always start here because you see some fantastic careers like yours, like looking at your LinkedIn. Wow. But you don't realise what it's taken someone to actually get from A to B to C. C meaning chief level. I want to start your first job. You're looking back. You're in your first job. You've got all the knowledge that you currently have now. What are you telling your younger self?
Sure. So let's start with what the first job was. I grew up in a mining town in the middle of South Africa, a place called Kimberley, which if you've ever been there is nothing much more than a hole. It's got the big hole. It's a diamond city. And my very first job was a vac job, but it was stock counting down a diamond mine in a place called Koffiefontein, which was even smaller than Kimberley, out in a dustbin. And that was, I absolutely hated it. I don't think they'd seen a woman down a mine shaft for probably a century. I didn't even know what I was looking at, but it was just, tick, tick, that must be that piece of equipment. But it probably taught me quite a bit. It taught me that, the journey to get to where you need to get isn't necessarily easy. And sometimes you've got to say no to things to actually have the right door open. And that specific accounting firm offered me a job at that stage, and I said no. I said to my dad, I'd rather take a loan, and I'm out of here. I'm not doing accounting and mining. I'm going to financial services. And so that taught me a lot. So, and at the time I didn't realize that I was actually being quite bold to go in the opposite direction. So what would I tell myself today with what I know? I'd say don't spoil a great career with a plan. Don't be fixated on what the next role, the next place, the next position has to be, but be fixated on growing and learning and having some fun along the way, because life's too short to be miserable.
I agree. And we all see these hockey business plans and fantastic careers, and something tomorrow could just change the whole direction, right?
Absolutely.
How do you... I want to tackle a little bit into saying no to things, because you can get shiny imposter syndrome, can't you? Shiny objects imposter syndrome, when you go, yeah, but what if I don't do this opportunity?
Yeah.
Just because it's an opportunity. So what is your methodology to saying no? There must be so many decisions that you have to make every single day. How do you say yes and how do you say no? And what's your advice to young people, someone who may be mid-career? What's your advice in terms of saying no? What's your secret ingredients?
So I don't think there's a secret per se, but I do think there's there's a bit of a thinking through the process. In South Africa, we play rugby, and there's always a stop, pause, engage before you go into a scrum and you actually tackle something. And I think with any of these things, there's a bit of a absorb the information, pause, think about it, reflect on it. And what I love is working with other people. So find those people that are going to have the opposite of view to you, and ask them, what would they do? It doesn't mean you listen to them, and then make your mind up. So for me, the bit around saying yes or saying no is not about saying it quickly. It's also not cogitating for life on it, but it's making sure you've got enough data points, and then being a bit brave and just saying, well, what's the worst going to happen then if I say no? So unfortunately, as you get more senior in your career, and certainly as the CFO, I spend a lot of time saying no at the moment because, there's finite resources, there's finite things that we can do. So, I think you've got to say no more than yes at the moment.
We got you to saying yes to this.
Exactly.
Something must have worked. Did you stop, pause and engage?
I stopped, paused, and I engaged our media team to say, should I be doing this? Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow. And so they offered you an opportunity and you was like, no, I don't want to be here. I want to get into financial services.
Yeah.
What happened next?
I went to Cape Town, which is a different city, and I went through the interview process, applied for bursaries, started uni, and I got a job at KPMG, which is financial services. Just going the hard routes through the interview channel. To be honest, I think it's probably the last time I had to go straight through a door that was completely unknown, because I've thereafter built networks and at least had an introduction. But that was the start, and it was just kind of grit and determination, getting into uni, getting decent scores, building a network, doing the vacation jobs, which were pretty dull. In my day, we still had files, and you had to move them around the floors, and
You know what I call it? Cheers and chores. Yeah. Every job will have cheers and chores.
Absolutely.
And you're paid to do the chores, but it's your responsibility to make the cheers happen.
Absolutely.
What's your advice to anyone who's walking through a door that's a bit unknown for the first time? Like that KPMG door that you was walking through. It was unknown. You went from the, obviously, in the middle of nowhere into Cape Town. So the office were in Cape Town?
Yeah, absolutely.
In Cape Town, walking through a door that you are unknown, and you have to kind of transition yourself into what does that role look like and what does that role look like? How did you do that?
So, I'd say my first advice is walk through the door, because if you don't walk through the door, you're never going to know what's on the other side. And then I think there's a bit around being curious of what could be on the other side. I know you probably had a million of your leaders say curiosity kills the cat, but it does not kill your career. It's really important, and just be curious about the people that are on the other side, the work that's on the other side. And I found that as I walked through that door, but actually you often sit there and you think, everyone on the other side is going to be different. They're much more secure than me. They've come from this environment. They've been in Cape Town. They've been in these bigger, more important schools. But actually, they're not. They're just feeling exactly the same way as you are. So I found that, building a network of peers, and actually some of my best friends today are still people that I met in KPMG right down there in my years of articles. So, my advice is walk through the door, trust your gut, be curious, and make a network.
I'm going to touch on the be curious, because you're totally right.
Yeah.
9 out of 10 leaders, especially the smart ones, they say be curious. Yeah. How do you build being curious? What is it really? My team hear it. They hear every leader say be curious, and then I get a parcel and they're like, what's in there? I'm like, there's certain things you'd be curious on, and certain things are just being nosy.
Not yours.
So help us digest what does be curious mean when you're starting out. And what's the difference between being curious and then staying in your lane in your job and not becoming how do we balance
How do you balance that? So for me, it's what you're being curious about, right? There's a curiosity and then there's intrusion.
That's a good word. I use nosy, you use intrusion. I'm going to start using that.
I think you need to be curious for the point of learning. So when I'm saying, go and be curious, it's go and understand what you can learn from that situation in terms of, how you're going to gather more, technical acumen, or how you're going to understand that business better, or how you're going to understand the numbers better, or how you're going to understand why they're doing things in that way. Simon Sinek says it really well, start with why. And I think that's where there's one part of curiosity. But for me, as I've got, developed in my career, I think that's curiosity about people. Because as a leader, if you can't motivate your people and you're not curious enough to know what motivates them, you're going to battle to get things done, right? Ultimately, you're not the doer anymore. You've got a huge organization underneath you. And if you're not curious about what motivates people or curious about how they've perceived things, I think you're going to miss a lot.
Be curious about the people.
Yes, about the people, but not intrusive.
I like that. And I've asked a number of leaders, from the Prime Minister to yourself, they've come on and you've come on and you've said, be curious. And when I start digging, like, what do you mean by curious?
Yeah.
I think you've given us a perfect answer. Be curious about the people and what motivates them,
Absolutely.
what engages them, and how you can be part of that team, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have to...
That doesn't mean intrusive, no.
You don't have to be a CEO or a CFO or a chief level just to be curious, right?
No, I mean, I think curiosity starts right at the beginning. I mean, if you're going to be part of a team, you need to know what your colleagues like. And I don't mean necessarily every aspect of their personal life, but you do need to know, why they're behaving in a certain way, or actually, what are their fears? What are the assumptions they're making and the assumptions you're making? Because we live far too much of our lives and our careers based on assumptions. And I think if you can break down what those assumptions are, you break down the fear that is inside that other person. And until you've done that, you don't get the best out of them.
Talking about fear, I'm a big believer that a lot of people, especially here in the UK, they say they like feedback, but they have feedback fear. I call it feedback fear. And I say, have you got feedback fear? And are you letting your ego get in the way of your feedback? How do you really embrace feedback? Because it can be quite tough, right?
Yeah.
And you want to go and you want to smile.
Yeah.
How do you embrace, as a young professional, how do you really embrace feedback? What was one of the earliest feedbacks that you got that it kind of...
It hurts.
It hurt, yeah.
It hurts,
Like, what was that, and how did you deal with it?
So, I mean, I'm South African, so I spent the first 5 years of my career in South Africa, and we're quite a direct nation, so you could be sure that you're going to get the feedback, and it's really, I think where the fear builds up is where feedback comes in it's your annual review. Actually, feedback should be in the moment, because then it's really valuable and you can learn. As a youngster, I didn't like feedback, because if you interpret feedback as criticism, it's really hard to bounce back from. But I think this is where, for me, it's about the reaction to that. So what I've learned over time was to absorb that, think about it, and then it's about my reaction to that feedback and how I then take it forward. Not all feedback, even criticism. I didn't even listen to all of it, because sometimes I'd say, well, actually, yes, I could have done that differently, but perhaps it's about the person giving me the feedback that maybe it's the circumstantial feedback. But I used that as learning. Initially, I hated it, but didn't react to it. I kind of internalized it. As I said to you, stop, pause, engage, think about it, and then decide on how you're going to react. So the ability to slow down that action of getting feedback and the reaction of how you're going to react to it, I think is how I've matured in my career. That time between getting the feedback, boom, explode or cry or whatever it might be, to actually get the feedback, go and think about it a bit. Okay, now react. That is really valuable time.
And this is where you mentioned around following your gut and having that support network. Because you get a bit of feedback. Does it sit right in your gut?
Yeah.
If it still doesn't, call on your network, right?
Absolutely. Help me.
Which we call the square squad, 4 people in your corner. Yeah. Call on those people. I've got this bit of feedback. How would you take it? Because we can all be too close. We use this saying, be more elephant, and because elephant have big ears and hippos have big mouths. So be more elephant, learn to listen. Elephants are longevity. But there's also, when you're too close to the elephant, all you can see is grey. Sometimes you have to step away from the elephant to see all the perspectives. And especially with feedback, you don't. No. You're like, oh, okay, it's here. Does that mean they don't like me? I'm going to be passed with a promotion. I'm not going to work on this cool project. You just need to take the moment to realise that actually feedback can be a gift.
It is a gift. It is a gift.
In terms of your jobs, part of your job, do you ever go in, and not the job you do now, but previous jobs that you've done, and thought, why am I here?
Often.
Because I do. Sometimes I love the interview part, but behind it, there's a whole operation that you
Absolutely.
have to you manage, making sure that obviously you're not putting anything out that offends anyone, making sure that the profit and loss is looking well, that you can still pay your team and everything. Is there any parts of your jobs that you had that you were just like, what am I doing here? And how do you make sure that you don't always think the grass is greener?
So first point on what am I doing here? I think I've had let's call it opportunity. One of my colleagues mentioned the other day, because we're obviously in quite turbulent stock markets, and she said, these are dog years, Megan. So I said, what do you mean dog years? She said, well, they're not great, but you learn 7 times more, because in those tough circumstances, you're really going to learn. And so I've had a number of dog years, and there's often in those dog years you think, what am I doing? Why am I here? And that could have been ranged from, I remember being in South Africa, and we had a massive transition of outsourcing our business, and I had a son who landed up in hospital. So trying to balance that was incredibly difficult. And you think, well, what am I doing in the office when actually I should be at home? So there are many circumstances, and I think it's a journey through that. And every day is a decision around, am I in the right place for the right reasons? But I think you've got to look at the broader context rather than the moment, because I think in the moment you can often think, should I be here? But actually the broader context should be, probably the right place for now. And then, I think it's hard to, you often look at the grass is greener. You look at other people, you look at perhaps the money they made or timing of arriving in places. And the grass, I have a philosophy, but hopefully this is going to go down well. But when the grass is greener, it's probably because there's more manure on it. And actually, every business has got its issues. Every job has got its highs and lows. And if you, after 100% happiness, 100% satisfaction every day, I think you're probably a bit misplaced.
Yeah, a bit weird. Can't all be happy 100% of the time, can you?
No.
And I think that's being real with yourself.
You've got to be real.
You're talking about the grass, and if it's a dog year, it might be a dog might have been on it.
That's what I said. Even you.
So we've got 2 money questions that I would love to find out and ask you. Yeah. So the first one, what is the financial decision that you regret the most?
So probably more, financial decisions are related to career decisions, because money doesn't fall from trees, and not from where I came from anyway. So I'd say the thing I regretted most was, as I was leaving uni, I had the opportunity to go and join a chap who worked with me at uni, who was going to go and set up his own business in his dad's garage, or I could go to big corporate. And I opted to go big corporate. He turned out to create a company called Thought Consulting, sold it for billions. Actually was the first African in space, but yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So there was an opportunity to go
I'm not saying it would have worked out, but that's a decision. It's a pause point, yeah.
So you could have went to the moon and join a startup, or join a corporate, and you decided the corporate route. And have you ever thought about building your own startup?
I have, and I think that's a decision you make. It depends on your life, and it depends on your family circumstances, your partner, and whether you can. It's a risk-based decision, and it's also an ideas-based decision. You've got to have an idea.
I've got an idea for you.
I've given loads of ideas to friends of mine, and they've done businesses, but I haven't done it myself.
I've got an idea for you.
Good.
A field. Yeah. Of trees that money grows on.
Brilliant.
Because we all need one of them, don't we?
Idea. If you find the seed, I'm with you.
Oh, and my second question is, what is your Simples money tip to your 18-year-old self?
Well, my first tip is you've got to have money to make money. So my first tip would be, get out there, get a job. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's babysitting, walking the dogs, and then save some of it. At least save half of what you're earning, because it builds. And if you look back to, had you saved when you were 18, and I did, what it could have been when you were 30, so much better than all the beer you could have drunk.
I love that. No matter what job, just go out there, get a job, earn some money, save a bit of it, and that then starts you on the pathway.
Absolutely.
I want to talk a little bit about mental health in the workplace. So I know it's such a important subject for you.
Yeah.
What is mental health, having good mental health in the workplace to you, and how do we encourage more to talk about mental health in the workplace?
Sure, thanks, Jack. It is a really important topic for me. I think as you go through your career, as I said to you earlier, you've got to test assumptions. You've got to meet people and understand, be curious about them. And often you don't really know what's going on in someone's mental status. And I've learned that through my career. And, I've had some instances, which are really not great to think about in terms of colleagues and what they've been through. And, and as much as a boss tragically taking his own life. So it's a massively important topic for me. And, I run the Minds Committee. I'm the chair of that for Schroders, and I did similar at M&G. And I think what's really important is it's about mental health, not mental illness. And I think we spend so much time on mental illness that we forget about mental health. And so for me, mental health is about getting balance and letting people understand where their own limitations are. I often say to my team, what I learned through my career is that don't think that my limitations on how much resilience I've got, how much stress I can take are equal to yours, because they absolutely aren't. And therefore, the giving people permission to understand their own boundaries and putting in break clauses around themselves to know when they need to take a break is really, really important. So for me, it's about mental health in the workplace rather than just the focus on the mental illness. The illness is there and it needs to be treated, and it's probably best dealt with a medical professional.
Absolutely.
Whereas mental health in an organization is around giving people that permission to understand themselves better, to understand their barriers and where their edges are, and then demonstrating to them that you do take that time out, that pause out. I personally, for my mental health, I'm a big runner. That's the way I get I keep sane, but also take my vacations, right? Take a break and actually really block that time off, to just have those kind of barriers to saying, this is it, I'm at my end now, it's enough, I need a break.
And where do you think we are in terms of the workplace, it being comfortably spoken about?
So I think we've moved enormously over the last 2 decades. Certainly, even growing up, it was, to go and seek help because you had a mental health issue was a very strange thing in when I was growing up. I think COVID, bizarrely, helped us through that time. I think organizations really realized how important mental health is. They realized that mental health is an individual thing, but actually it can be helped by being part of a community and having people in the office with you, working with you. And I think it's much more spoken about now. I mean, we do a lot within Schroders in terms of having those conversations in terms of, how are you doing at work? Have you got have we got a safe space for talking to your colleagues about where you're at and taking that time out, that break? So I think we've moved a lot. But, the thing with mental health is it's unlike physical health. You can't see the problem. And therefore, to my point around being curious versus being intrusive, I think this is where that line gets very blurred and it becomes quite difficult to manage as a leader, as a manager, because, my level of intrusion may be different to yours. But I think the thing that we can do, and which is definitely moving, there's the Minds Alliance, we sit on that. There's a lot more focus on, giving people that safe space to be able to talk up at work and communicate where they're at.
So it's finding your break clauses, making sure you find something like you love to run, find your thing, take an holiday if you need to take a break.
Absolutely.
And then start the conversation with the people in the organisation that you feel safe to do so, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, if you're going to work in an organisation, one of the people you interviewed said you must have a friend at work, and I think you feel best in an organisation. A lot about it is about being part of a community, and use that community. That you're with those people a huge portion of your day. Use that community, and when someone's not looking good, not feeling good, reaching out. And I think if you can build that into an organisation's DNA, that's when we really are winning.
You definitely seem someone I would come and talk to. You're just full of joy. I love it. I love it. You're full of joy. But also, I'll take you in to negotiate anything.
Yeah.
I love it. There would be no grey areas with you. It'd be straight. What's going on? I love it.
Hello, Otto Sergey.
Hello, Mr. Alexander. Are you looking for a credit card?
Oh, he's good. With Otto Sergey's handy credit card feature, he'll check your chances of approval before you apply, without impacting your credit score, taking the guesswork out of finding a credit card.
Simples.
Hey, that's my line.
Tell me a little bit about the role you do now. So you're group CFO.
Yeah.
What does that mean? And what does the organisation do? How does it operate? Just tell me all the stuff that you can share.
Sure. So Schroders is a great organisation. As I said, we got just over 6,000 employees, and it's about 250 years old. Not quite 250, but something close by. Family organisation built by the Schroders family, and so it's got a really interesting DNA of this long family heritage, which comes with a set of values that certainly resonate with me. And the business, what we do is we look after people's money, and so what gets me excited about the industry is that as an asset manager and a wealth manager, which is what we are, we've got three lines of business. We manage people's money, maybe not directly the man on the street, but certainly through funds or through their pension funds, and that's really important. We speak about health, and people spend their whole lives working, and imagine you get to your retirement age and you realise your money's been with a Ponzi scheme, and then what? You can't retire. You're back on the street. So for me, it's really important that our business is there to help people. Our motto is helping people build prosperity together, and the together is really important because we, in our different wealth businesses and our investment business, we advise clients on how to build a solution that will meet their outcome. I like to say it's outcome-based investing. So you want to go on a holiday? What do you need to save to do that great holiday, or that buy that house, or maybe it's a pension fund. You want to make sure that you can support your 5,000 pensioners over the certain life stages. So for me, that's the exciting part of our business. We help people make sure that their money is A, safe, and B, earning what it needs to earn while they're in different stages of their life.
And what is your tips to any young person when it comes to pensions, saving, investments? Because even I grew up in a council estate. We had no money, and I don't think I ever heard the word wealth mentioned all throughout my secondary school. Yeah. School doesn't teach you how to pay for life, even though the teachers try and do a best job as they possibly can with the resources they've got. Yeah. What is your tips or your message to people? I've
got 2 children, and really trying to encourage them. One saves and never spends any money, and the other one spends more money than they have.
And why do you, just on that, why do you think that is? Why does one save and then one spends?
One is containing themselves for something that they can buy in the future and doesn't like to spend money because they struggle making decisions of where they should spend their money. And the other one thinks, well, mum would help. It's always a safety net, which is maybe not the right place to be. But my first advice would be, make sure that you are saving some money and make sure that you're putting that money in a trustworthy entity, right? So whether that be a bank, whether that be a ISA, whether that be a pension fund. I mean, you start with the basics, but the key thing here is to actually save and put it somewhere where it can invest and grow. You could easily have one less beer in the pub every night, as I say to my children, and put that money in a savings account. And actually, by the time you're ready to drink it in a few years' time, you could get 2 beers.
Yeah. Or you don't need to at the moment because you've got mum's safety net.
Not totally.
But, so it doesn't matter how much wealth you've got, how much money you've got, you can start small.
You can start small. Just start. Absolutely. That's the key. It builds. It builds.
And then decide which one, or you can...
There's so many opportunities in this country to save, right? Whether it be your pension, whether it be your cash ISA every year, whether it be your, the ISAs for your children, whether it be an investment ISA, whether you want to put your money into some of the more alternative type investments. There's plenty of opportunity to invest. The point is, give it a go. Put it somewhere where you know that you got some savings for the rainy days.
And also double check, and then check again before you do anything, right?
Yeah.
Because there's loads of
scams out there.
Scams on...
well, that's right. A reputable company, right? Put it out there with a reputable company. Yeah.
Check their Trustpilot. And,
absolutely.
And move forward.
Yeah.
So a little bit about your role.
Yeah.
You wake up in the morning, you flip the duvet,
yeah,
and you have your morning run and your coffee.
Yeah.
Like, what does your role entail of, and like what's your responsibilities?
Sure.
And how does one lead to become in a role like yours?
Okay, so there's a lot wrapped up there. But
I know.
Let's start with what it involves day to day. So, kind of as the CFO of the company, I'm accountable for making sure that we are looking after our shareholders, because that's how we build the business, and making sure that we get the right return on their investments, right?
And a shareholder is what?
A shareholder is someone who owns shares, equity in your business, right? So it's it could be it's like the owner of your business. It's the owner of the business, right? That's exactly what the shareholder is. They're the owner of your business. They fund your business. They give you the money to build your house, as an example. They would be the funder of your house, but they own part of it. Right?
And that could be an individual or a company.
It could be an individual or a company. So for us, we're a listed company. So that means that people go and take a shareholding of our stock by buying it in the stock market, right? So you can go and buy Schroders shares on the London Stock Exchange. You can go and buy them through any of the platforms that are out there for buying shares. I mean, that's your choice as if you'd like to. So my job is to make sure that the health of the company, financial health of the company, is servicing the shareholders properly. It's servicing our staff properly, because clearly the better the company does, the more we can pay people in bonuses. And it's most importantly, it's servicing our clients properly, because we're an investment manager. The job we do is not running off our own money. It's our clients' money that we are helping them grow, right? So, Schroders has got £778 billion worth of money that is entrusted to us to run on behalf of our clients, to make sure that we are, behind those clients is your mum, your grandmum, making sure that we are saving for those people in the right way to get them the outcomes to ensure that they can live a decent life. So I look after the financial health of the organization. I also look after the operating health and the technology of the organization. And excitingly, I look after the transformation. So really trying to modernize the organization, move it into the next generation, make sure that we are adding value in the things we do. So it's an exciting role, but I don't do that by myself, right? The key thing is I've got an incredible team around me that are actually doing the doing. So, I like to just bit of the conductor of an orchestra rather than playing any of the instruments at this point.
And what's one of your favourite parts of the role that you do?
I think the favorite part of the role is the people I work with. There's nothing more rewarding for me than working with a set of people and seeing them grow up or achieve, whether it be achieving because they've delivered a project, whether it be achieving because they've smashed it out the park in terms of what we've delivered to shareholders and how we've delivered a great strategy. I think that is absolutely what drives me.
And what do you think makes a good CFO? If there's young people who are aspiring to be CFOs of the future, what do you believe makes a good CFO?
I think the first thing is you'll see a lot of the sort of FTSE companies nowadays, the CFO didn't necessarily spend their entire life in finance. So if you look at my career, I am an accountant. I mean, got to have the basics, got to get the grounding in place. But I moved into operations, technology, risk, projects, transformation, audit. I did the kind of full gambit. So I think a great CFO is someone who really can understand the breadth of the business. They're a great problem solver. And they understand the levers of value in an organization. And that might be levers of value of, well, actually that person is really, really important because without them, we ain't going to generate that revenue. So understand the values of the levers in the organization that need protection for value, and understand the opportunities of where they could improve and take cost out. I think, so breadth of organization, understanding the drivers of value, both people and numbers, and the ability to make some decisions, tough ones.
And did you ever think that first day walking through KPMG, you'd end up as the group CFO?
Of a listed FTSE 100, never. Not, I mean, you may have spoken about growing up in a council estate. If you see where Kimberley is, it's a long way off the map. I definitely did not envisage being here today. And as I said earlier, I think if that had been my obsession, I probably wouldn't have got there. My obsession's been about learning. It's been about making sure that each day that I turn up, I'm learning something new. I'm meeting someone new. I love people. And that's,
you got to meet me today.
I got to meet you. What a privilege. What a privilege.
What's your one life lesson whether it's something in the workplace, whether it's something on a Sunday that you picked up from the local run in the park? What's something that's really stuck with you that you want to pass on to the next generation?
I think, never give up. Just never give up I think sometimes obstacles arrive in your life, or things take a slightly different direction. Be agile enough to accept that and move with it, but don't give up on moving forward is my key thing. So that determination, that grit, to have a purpose of actually improving each day. And for some people it's money. It's not particularly my problem, but others it may be badges. For others it may be how many people they have influenced through their career. But just don't give up, right? That would be my key thing. Keep getting up, keep banging your head, and get up again.
So don't give up, keep moving forward, and realise that what may be your problem is not something else's, and what may be their problem is not yours.
Exactly.
Are you ready for my final question?
Oh, I don't know. I think so.
What's your duvet flip? What gets you out of bed in the morning to flip the duvet?
Well, first thing that gets me up is going out for a run or a walk with my dogs. I love that. Just clears the head. And then it's about getting up every day and learning something new, meeting someone new, trying something new. That's what gets me out of bed.
Well, I just want to say thank you for joining us today on the show. I've not had a morning coffee. I don't think I need it. I always look and say, is this person a drain or a radiator? You've definitely been a radiator today.
Brilliant.
You've been straight to the point. You've been very good with your answers. Like pro here, get you everywhere. I just want to say thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It's been a great privilege, and thanks for what you do for the next generation. It's really important.
And there we are.
Thank you.